Hey guys, what's up? Kalamazi here, and welcome back to another BFA Beta Dungeon video. This time we're going to be taking a look at Frost Mage on the battle for Azeroth Beta. Now Frost Mage is another class that I have a bit of experience with from live Legion servers, and honestly not much has really changed talent-wise or even spell-wise from the current live servers. Your artifact weapon ability, Ebon Bolt, is now a talent in the level 60 row, and it's also the talent that I've chosen for this quick run through Atal'Dazar. Here's a look at all the talents I chose for the run. Lonely Winter, Incanter's Flow, Splitting Ice, and Thermal Void are all talents that we currently have on live servers, and I really like the feel of Frost on live, so I'm hoping that Frost should be solid here as well. I'll have a link to the logs in the description below if you guys want to take a more in-depth look at the run as well. The first boss we encounter is Rosanna, and the fight was sort of a mess for us. The boss was pulled a bit before we were actually within range of him, and we did also not have our Icy Veins cooldown available, as we decided to turn back and kill him for some reason after clearing most of the trash to another boss. He was tanked sort of in an odd spot here, which gave us very little room to LOS his roar, and then right after the roar, we were targeted by his pursuit ability. At this point, I decided just to actually eat the pursuit, as Blink was on cooldown, and the fight was almost over as is. Our damage here is pretty poor, but this is bound to happen when a fight goes this way, as it did here for us. Thankfully we did have another Frost Mage in the group who did solid damage overall, so we can see a bit as to how Frost performs on Rosanna. One thing to make note of here is that our group did not really step on any of the bone piles around Rosanna, which spawn small raptors adds if you come in contact with them. If that were the case, however, I would expect our damage to be much higher, as it would give us a second target for our Ice Lances to actually cleave off of. The breakdown shows the Ice Lance was our main damaging ability, followed by our Icicles, and then Frostbolt. Flurry is a bit lower than expected, but with us not casting nearly as many Frostbolts, or even any spells really for that matter, it does make a good bit of sense, as we were targeted by the vast majority of all the mechanics on that fight. The second boss we fought is Vocal, and he's a two-stage fight. Phase 1 requires you to kill all 3 of his reanimation totems. Doing so will begin Phase 2 of the encounter, where Vocal is now killable. Simply kiting him around the room while moving from the green pools that are placed on the floor under your feet is pretty much all that's required of you. However, the fight does get a good bit more hectic on higher difficulties, as his health pool does increase drastically.
You die with me! Gonna build me again.
The damage meter has us in first at 2900 DPS, followed by the Affliction Warlock at 2500, and then the other Frost Mage at 2200. I did save mostly all of my CDs for Phase 2 here, as having to swap between the different totems in Phase 1 while your CDs are active is a pretty big DPS loss. On Heroic and higher, however, the totems must be killed within a few seconds of each other, or they heal back to full, so that's something to keep in mind. Damage breakdown shows that Ice Lance was our highest damaging ability, followed by Flurry, and then our Icicles. With it being such a heavy movement fight, I did expect Ice Lance to be a tad higher here than on stationary fights, so banking 1 or so charges of Fingers of Frost is advised for times of heavy movement. Priestess of Lunza is a third boss encounter in Atal'Dazar, and it's pretty much a single target fight on normal. We did pull 1 or 2 adds here with her, however, at the beginning, which did inflate our damage a bit here, as having 2 cleave targets for Ice Lance is pretty big. I did save Icy Veins for when the adds are mostly dead in an effort to not inflate my damage too much, but there was only a bit that could be done. It is worth mentioning that there are some adds present on Heroic and higher difficulties, so there is some actual merit to this pull.
Corruption be purified! Atal'Dazar's power flows
The damage meter here has its in first, followed by other Frost Mage, and then the Affliction Warlock. It's worth mentioning that there are some adds, like I said, in heroic iron difficulties present, so there is some merit to this pull. However, a bit of everyone's damage was inflated due to the extra 2 adds at the start of the fight. With us having no blood pools to absorb the first transfusion, the fight went on a bit longer than it should have as well, but I don't think it made a large impact on anyone's damage here specifically. We see Ice Lance here as a number 1 damaging ability again, and by a good margin. With it being 40% of our overall damage, it really shows how much the additional adds at the start here affected our damage. If you take a look back to the Volcal kill, which is a single target encounter mostly, you see that Ice Lance was only 33% or so of our total damage, so that accounted for roughly an additional 7% Ice Lance damage, barring some insane Fingers of Frost proc. Yasma is the final boss encounter in Atal'Dazar, and she's pretty much right after you kill the 3rd boss. She'll periodically fixate a random party member and have them spawn an ab, which has to be killed ASAP. If it reaches the boss, it explodes, dealing a very large amount of damage to the party, so it's a high priority target.
Your spirits apart.
The final damage meter has its in first at 3200 DPS, followed by the Affliction Warlock at 2600 and the other Frost Mage at 2200 or so DPS. It's worth noting that I was not the target of any Yasma's fixate, so it is a bit of a bonus when it comes to my overall damage. Saving a proc or 2 of Fingers of Frost for the added spawns is advisable here, as the adds need to die very quickly. Slows and stuns are also effective here, as at times certain party members don't get out as far as they should with the debuff before it expires. The final breakdown shows Ice Lance sitting right at 33% of our total damage, which, when in comparison to Priestess, is a much more realistic number for a single target encounter. We also have Flurry and second at roughly 25%, followed by our Icicles, and then finally Frostbolt. After running through the entire dungeon, I have to say that I'm very impressed with Frost Mage thus far. The single target damage you bring for bosses with this build is very competitive, and if there are 2 or more targets present, your damage really skyrockets via Ice Lance Cleave. Our trash damage also feels very strong with both Blizzard and Frozen Orb providing a good bit of damage, and with Frozen Orb granting Fingers of Frost procs, you really get a whole lot of burst damage in almost every pack. I would imagine that a tuning pass is pretty close, most likely in the next build of Beta, so it will be interesting to see where Blizzard takes Frost Mage as we get further into the battle for Azeroth Beta and class tuning as a whole. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did making it, and hopefully you found it useful as well for looking at the new builds and specs in Battle for Azeroth. Let me know what you guys thought of Frost Mage in the comments below, and what other specs you'd like to see as well. Remember to smash those like, share, and subscribe buttons below as well if you guys want to see more WoW and BFA content, as your support really helps. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you all pretty soon in Battle for Azeroth. Peace.